Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another one-on-one with your boy Carnell MD Holley. Here today, special guest, creator of posturized photography, Mr. A.V. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, man.
Well, you're actually not originally from Georgia, correct?
No, I'm from Evansville, Indiana. Very small city. I don't say a small town, but it's a small city in Indiana, right on the Indiana-Kentucky border along the Ohio River.
How close is that to Gary?
Not close at all.
Oh.
Gary's up near Chicago. We're at the very southern tip of the state.
Tell me here, Indiana. Oh, that's where the Jackson 5 is from.
There's about 300,000 people there. When I went to school, I went to college at Wabash College in Indiana, in Crawfordsville, Indiana. That's a town. There's only like 3,500 people there. So that's what a town. That's why I differentiate. I'm not like from the backwoods or anything like that.
Okay.
It's just a small city in Indiana.
So what brought you to the A?
Actually, my mom moved down here in 1990 when my parents had divorced. I guess it was about 88. So basically, it was a situation where I was always sort of splitting time between Atlanta and Indiana. And growing up, probably ever since I was in the 8th grade, I just knew that Indiana just wasn't going to be for me. I'm actually shocked and surprised every time I think about the fact that I even went to college there. But a week after I finished school, I moved to Atlanta full time. So.
Did you go to school for photography, or?
Not at all. I'm actually a self-taught photographer. I started off editing photos out of my camera phone. And I just randomly sort of had Photoshop on a laptop my cousin had given me. I never opened it, never used it. And I was like, let me just play with this thing and see what you can do. And I was taking pictures from my camera phone and uploading it onto my computer and playing, or editing them, editing them, excuse me, in Photoshop. And then it just kind of went from there. And I was like, well, this is kind of fun. I want to try this out. And I said, well, I'm gonna get a real camera, because at the time I didn't even own a digital camera at all, like nothing.
So you're just using your phone for?
My phone was for everything. And so I said, well, I don't want to spend too much money. I just want to kind of get a little bit better camera. And I bought a little bitty 6 megapixel Nikon point and shoot camera, very basic. I started shooting with that. No flashes. We're actually here in my studio now, and I've got real strobe flashes now. Continuous lighting, which is lighting us now, and I was just using natural light. So I would take the pictures in my bathroom and use my wallpaper as the backdrop for all my pictures. And I just had to shoot at a specific time of day because I have a big bay window over my tub.
Right.
So I was relying on the light, the natural light coming in from the outside to take good photos. Because if it got too late, it was like, well, I don't have good lighting anymore.
So between like the afternoon, or?
Yeah, probably like between like 11 a.m.
Like 9 or something.
Yeah, about 11 a.m. I think was a good time, like 11 and like maybe 3 at the latest probably. And so I would take my pictures then, and then again go back to Photoshop, editing them. And wasn't at that time, point in time, I definitely wasn't charging anybody. I was just still getting my feet wet. I didn't even have a professional camera, and then it grew from there. I kind of made my first quote-unquote major investment into a real digital SLR camera, and I got a Nikon D40X, which is the very beginning level that was out at the time, D40X. And the way that I really approached it was, well, I kept it really simple, because I'm like, if I can make a camera phone picture look good, just imagine what I could do with this camera.
Right.
So then, I saw the results in the second point and shoot camera, and then I knew when I went to the next level that I was going to be able to even take it to an even further level with a real camera. And I got that camera, and I pretty much rocked out with that thing. I was taking really good pictures with it. Editing it was good. Finally got my first studio strobe flashes, which
From the first gig?
From the first gig.
Yeah.
Well, when I got the D40X, it was a little bit of a time. I can't remember how long. Maybe about another. I'll be honest, it might have been 6 months to a year before I invested. I think it's probably about 6 months from when I got the D40X to when I actually got my first studio light and set up a studio here in my home. And I was taking, by that time, you know, I was taking really good pictures. At that point in time, I definitely was, you know, somewhere along the time, in that time frame is when I felt comfortable enough to start charging people for pictures, and people, you know, were paying me. And I was still learning and growing, but I knew I had got to a point where the work was looking professional. I don't think I mean, to me, it's going to be a lifetime process of learning. But what I tell people all the time, or aspiring photographers, is that photography is really comprised of two things. It's 90% lighting and 10% the photographer's eye. Why? Which is the reason why I can take a shot with my BlackBerry today that you would think was shot, you know, with some elaborate lighting and great camera and all that stuff. But you know, anybody who really knows photography should at least be able to tell you that. You can take a good picture with great lighting and having the right eye, you know, basically to see the frame before you shoot it. Say, oh, that's a good picture. You know, snap it, and if you got good lighting, you got a good picture, basically.
Vision. Because that isn't that your quote on your website?
No, I don't think I have that up. It's probably, it might be in my bio.
So remember, see, I was on the website just the other night actually, and I remember a quote, and it's like something. It was dealing with vision.
That's, yeah, on the homepage. It's just basically saying that Urban Posture is my vision of the world, and when you come to me, I basically reinterpret what your vision is through my eyes, through a creative process, basically. And the limits there are just limited to your own imagination. So, which is kind of what happened, you know, when you and I collaborated just recently on my first action concept shoot. You know, you had the vision. I sort of had to take it, being the one that was actually going to shoot it and somewhat direct it, and you know, get the right locations for it, set up the correct lighting, get the right proper casting, make sure I'm shooting the right angles, getting all of the elements, you know, combining all those elements together. And then, yeah, exactly, and it culminizes in what you actually see, you know, with the images.
Because I remember you put up a post and you were wanting to collaborate with a select few just to foremost get a basis for your whole group that you want to roll with, or is
Right. I was, you know, I'm always trying to network with makeup artists, models, hairstylists, to always make sure that I have a good network and a good core of individuals that I'm working with. So at the time when you reached out to me, I had put a post on Facebook just saying, you know, hey, anybody looking to collaborate, you know, in any of those disciplines or whatever, you know, just get at me. And you were actually the first or second person that hit me up on that post.
That's like, I was thinking, because I'm like, man, I know I want to collaborate, but I know you usually get hit up with people that know you, like, hey, you know, you're a photographer, can you take my picture? But always wanting to, it's mutually beneficial. So it's not just like, okay, well, you're just going to take my picture and that be that. But and when you reached out to me, I was thinking like you might have already had something in mind. So the one thing in mind that I had at the time was this whole live action comic book idea. When I was like trying to relate to you, it's like, well, it's not comic book in the sense of superheroes and everything, but just like for us the sequential art. And I was just like, oh, how do you feel about that? And so I told you the story, and we just collaborated on that. Like you said, getting the right cast. How did you feel when I told you about that concept when I was bringing that to you?
I was definitely interested. You know, a lot of people, you know, they say, well, you know, your next step is going to be, you know, film. But I'm really, I'm still engrossing myself, or I should say engulfing myself, in the world of still photography. I just am fascinated by the stories that you can tell in just even in a single photograph. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to rule out film altogether, but it's just not nothing that I have an interest in right now. And with your particular concept, I thought it would be interesting to sort of tell that story in many photographs, which is exactly what a movie is, except it's just, sort of all streamed together. But I wanted to see, if I could put the sequences together of the storyboard and actually make a cohesive story just with still photos. And I think from what was actually produced, I think it told a good story. I think that it was cohesive. You can kind of get a feeling from what was going on, the facial expressions, because there's no words, there's no text involved at all. Right. So you're pretty much just relying on the content of each shot to tell the story. Right. And I knew I didn't want to use. One thing I did was probably different than what other people would have done. Is I used different means of editing the photos. I didn't make every photo sort of look homogeneous in terms of the editing from one shot to the next. I had some where I had some colors deleted, some colors in, some I just had straight black and white, some were all colors, some I had more grain than others. So there was different editing techniques that I used throughout. They made it a little bit different because it would it just kind of gave it just a little extra feel, just a little bit, made it a little bit more unique. Something more powerful.
Yeah,
right.
Like in one particular picture where it was almost behind the scenes photo where we get a picture where it's not the photographer, but we see the outside from the third person, and we see the photographer. But in one, everybody's in the shot. And it's black and white, but only the model vanities were red.
Right.
Like, okay, I'm feeling that. Okay. For his casting, how did you go about getting the right cast for this particular project?
In this situation, it's about
casting group.
Well, yeah, you have to really think of it from a resource standpoint. You have to think of it from a creative standpoint. So, using, let's say, for example, Mimi J as the photographer, but also utilizing her space in P3 Lab, it just made sense. It's already a photography studio, and it just gave her a chance to do something different. She's never been seen behind the camera.
That's true.
So it made sense. Then you had, Vanity, the lead in it, that had sort of the image that you had described the character as having, kind of that rock star look. Right. Beautiful, model-esque, but then also have the rock star element, which we styled her in that sort of a rock star style. She has tattoos and whatnot. So it just kind of...
And a piercing.
So it just made sense that way. The makeup artist, Jay Donnell, she just kind of made it in by default just to kind of add to the element of the photo shoot. And of course, obviously yourself, you're the one that's the martial arts expert to complete the fight scenes. Of course, Dante, you knew Dante, and that seemed to work out well. By the way, I don't think we've mentioned it, but what we're talking about is a sequence of photos that tell a short story that I call Victory and Defeat.
Right, I did see that title.
Because once you see the photos, you kind of, it all makes sense.
Not to try to get too much away, but you can check everything out on the website.
Right, www.urbanposhture.com. Just click on Posturized and you'll see it there. And it's Poshture. So it's Urban Poshture, so you add an H in there. And you can Google Urban Poshture as well. You will get directed to the site as well. So.
And since for this particular project, and this was your first time doing action shots, how did you feel for when we got to the fight scene? How that process unfolded?
That was very interesting. One thing that I will say is that, first and foremost, I don't ever proclaim to be the best, biggest, baddest, photographer that's in town in the city of Atlanta or anywhere else for that matter. I do believe in my skill set. I do believe that I'm a good photographer. But one of my particular talents is that I swear it's just natural or uncanny, is that I have a real knack for capturing moments at a specific time. I have an uncanny ability to do is capture the moment that you need right in that moment. So that skill set played in perfectly into what we were doing.
Right.
To capture, the flying around, the kicks, the tosses, the throws. There's one black and white that's just unbelievable.
Of the
toss. So
right,
throwing Dante is just like, you can just feel the action. You can feel it just when you look at it.
I felt that.
So behind the scenes, you wouldn't have even guessed how that was, produced.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it on camera, it translated perfectly.
I wouldn't say movie magic, but definitely camera magic. So to sell the shot. Because for as the action itself, how did you feel for as how you captured everything at that particular moment for us, action-wise, like you said, with the handstand and everything?
You're saying, how did I capture it in our project?
Right.
Are you asking me to rate how I felt like I captured it?
More or less.
I think I did a pretty good job of capturing the moments the way that I would have wanted them captured. It was ironic, and it always seems to work out this way. One of the best shots was the first shot. There was actually a test shot to see how this was even going to work. And it's the one where Dante was kicking you in the face.
Oh, right.
And the timing on that shot was just impeccable. It looked like you actually were struck by his foot, because I had the exact right angle and I snapped, the shutter at the exact moment where it needed to be shot. So again, I think I did a good job. I don't think we would have left out of there if I felt like we just didn't capture, the action. We just felt like I didn't have any good shots. Like I just wasn't able to capture what I wanted to capture. We wouldn't have walked out of there.
Right.
If we did, we would have been in there for a long time. Like, okay,
it was all day. It was definitely an all-day shoot.
So, but it didn't take for the frames that we wanted. It wasn't like we were shooting 20 times.
Right.
To get the frame. 2 or 3 times, and then when we had it, But yeah, it could have been a much longer process if I, like I said, didn't possess that sort of skill set of knowing that exact moment of impact to push the trigger on the camera. So I was pleased with the outcome.
Amen.
I thought the lighting went well. That might have been an area where I might have did a little bit more tweaking, maybe put some stuff in some different places, lighting wise. But I think I pretty much edited the way that I would have wanted to be seen or shot anyway. So, it was mixing the studio lights with that daytime light because of the window front.
Right, the natural light.
Mixing that in, that can be tricky sometimes, and trying to get your camera, to the place where you want it, especially when you're changing angles all the time. That can be tricky at times. It just really depends on, the power of your lights and how much you want your lights to take over the natural light. But I think like I said, overall, I was pleased with the outcome.
Just looking at it on your website, just how you scroll through everything, it's like, okay, and then ending it with the last shot for everything just to come together. It's like, that's a nice victory and defeat. Definitely check that out. See what your how you feel about it. Well, that's seems about the time for a wrap up, but definitely appreciate appreciate your time,
Appreciate you, man.
and I can't wait to work with you again. And again, for us, if you didn't get the website,
It's urbanposhture.com. That's urban, POSHTURE.com.
All right, Mr. A.B. and Carnell MD Holley signing off.
Peace.